Hi, I'm Tom Giannotti. I'm an attorney with the Butler Law Firm, and today I want to talk about expert witnesses and what we call a Daubert challenge. And to do that, I thought it would be helpful to bring in one of my personal favorite movies, My Cousin Vinny. Not just because I'm an Italian lawyer practicing in the South, but also because it's one of the more procedurally accurate movies. So I want to play this short clip and then talk about it and how it differs or is similar from real world experience.
You do in your father's garage?
Tune-ups, oil changes, brake relining, engine rebuilds, rebuild some trannies, rear ends.
Okay. But does being an ex-mechanic necessarily qualify you as being an expert on tire marks?
No. Thank you. Goodbye.
Sit down and stay there until you're told to leave.
Your Honor, Ms. Vito's expertise is in general automotive knowledge. It is in this area that her testimony will be applicable. Now, if Mr. Trotter wishes to voir dire a witness as to the extent of her expertise in this area, I'm sure he's going to be more than satisfied.
Okay.
All right. Now, Ms. Vito, being an expert on general automotive knowledge, can you tell me what would the correct ignition timing be on a 1955 Bel Air Chevrolet with a 327 cubic inch engine and a 4-barrel carburetor?
It's a bullshit question.
Does that mean that you can't answer it?
It's a bullshit question. It's impossible to answer.
Impossible because you don't know the answer.
Nobody could answer that question.
Your Honor, I move to disqualify Ms. Vito as an expert witness.
Can you answer the question?
No, it is a trick question.
Why is it a trick question?
Watch this.
Because Chevy didn't make a 327 in 55. The 327 didn't come out till 62. And it wasn't offered in the Bel Air with a 4-barrel carb till 64. However, in 1964, the correct ignition timing would be 4 degrees before top dead center.
Well, she's acceptable, Your Honor.
So, first thing, this would not have been done in open court like that, and especially not in front of the jury. So, in reality, what we call a Daubert motion is something that's raised before trial, and it's done by written motion to the court. And the party that's bringing what we call a Daubert challenge is going to write a brief and have taken a deposition of that expert instead of questioning them in front of the judge. The other side will submit their own brief, and there may be a hearing in front of the court, again, pre-trial outside the presence of any jury, as to whether this expert should be allowed to testify at trial. And then if the expert is allowed to testify at trial, then the other side can cross-examine him or her, but only on certain topics like bias and et cetera. So basically, they can still, challenge the witness, but not in the way that you see on in My Cousin Vinny. But some of the things that are accurate, though, is basically the way that they go about challenging. In other words, at the beginning of that clip where the prosecutor says, well, how does being a general automotive mechanics expert qualify you to talk about, tire marks? And then she later in the movie, explains that. But basically, that's the general idea: is the expert has to stay in his or her lane. So they can't talk about things outside that specialized knowledge, training, education, experience. So we'll go through some examples. So let's say you have a car accident where the injured person has a broken bone. Let's say they broke their leg, and before the accident they were perfectly fine. They didn't have a broken leg or any pain, and then they, after the accident, they have a broken leg. So for one, the question is, would this expert's testimony actually help the jury? Well, in that situation, if they're perfectly fine before and then they're not, it's pretty much common sense. You don't need a doctor to come in and say that, yeah, the car accident caused him to break his leg. Now, you may have a doctor come in and say, this is what I did. I did surgery on him. I did a fixation reduction surgery. The bone was comminuted. It was broken into several pieces. And because of that, this person is going to have arthritis down the road, and they're going to need pain management, and they're going to need physical therapy, etc. Those are the sorts of things they can say, and it would be helpful to a jury because the jury doesn't have medical background necessarily. So that's one instance. And another, using that same example, you wouldn't have a cardiologist come in and talk about the patient's broken leg. Just like you would have the orthopedic doctor who did surgery on the leg would not say that, well, a car accident caused this patient to have a traumatic brain injury. You might have a neurologist say that, but it wouldn't be the orthopedist. So again, they have to stay in their lane. And again, and also, in order to be qualified to testify, they obviously have to have the necessary background. Now, doesn't mean they have to have a PhD or an MD. Just like the character in Marissa Tomei's character in My Cousin Vinny, the person can just have general real world experience, and it's less common. But most experts you see have an impressive resume or CV. But that just because they have an impressive CV doesn't mean that they'll be allowed to testify. Another challenge that can be brought is the experts' opinions the product of reliable principles and methods, as you see there, which basically goes to the expert's methodology. Different example, but I had a case where the defense had hired what they called a medical billing expert, who basically was hired to come in and say that the doctor, the neurosurgeon that did our client's surgery, charged too much for the surgery, and the bill was too high. And he came in and he basically had a methodology that he admitted he just made up himself, and was based on the Medicare rate, like what Medicare would pay for that same surgery. And basically anything above a certain amount beyond Medicare rate was he deemed excessive or unreasonable. So not to mention that was basically a way to backdoor in inadmissible evidence about collateral source, i.e. insurance, totally separate. But the point is, his methodology was not, nobody else was using this. It wasn't reliable. It wasn't peer reviewed. It wasn't tested or really even capable of being tested. It was just reliable because he said it was, right? So that expert had been excluded in a number of other cases, and basically just again admitted that his methodology was not reliable and was not allowed to testify. So you have to basically have some evidence that what you're saying is backed up by your training and education experience. Another example would be, let's say you have a car accident and you hire an accident reconstruction expert. Well, that expert can talk about, the driver braked at 3 or 4 seconds before the impact, and they were 400 or 500 feet out when that happened. And this is all based on the measurements that I took at the scene and the data I downloaded from the car, and I think that's a reasonable reaction. Well, hold on a minute. You can't talk about being what's a reasonable reaction, or what that, yeah, and the accident is what caused his broken leg. Well, hold on a minute. That's not your job here. Your job is to stay in your lane and talk about the measurements and data that you took from the scene. Let a different expert talk about those topics. And then just like that expert would need to an expert that would talk about the driver's reasonableness reaction would have to rely on the reconstruction expert's measurements and data to base his opinions on, or her opinions on. So basically, that's how this would play out in practice, and the challenges that are brought in real life are typically more nuanced. Again, you may have a doctor who's limited in talking about certain areas but not others, or an accident reconstruction expert who tries to overstep his or her boundaries and talk about things that are not supported by their own methodology. So hopefully this has been helpful and informative. If you want to learn more about expert witnesses, we have some other videos on our YouTube channel about different types of experts. So check those out. But thank you for watching, and if we can ever be of assistance to you, please give us a call. Our phone number is 678-940-1444. You can also go to our website at butlerfirm.com. Thanks again for watching.